So this is phase 2 of my testing. In the previous test, we figured out the shooting speed, the ISO of the film, the actual ISO, as compared to the box speed. And now we're going to figure out the development time, the processing time. So here we go. Let's take Delta100 as an example. I've already proven or shown for what I'm trying to do that instead of being the box speed of 100, I'm going to shoot it at ISO 64. So 2/3 of a stop open. Your results may change a little bit, but let's just go with that. Delta100 is at 64. Now I'm going to set my camera up just like I did before with that gray card, and I'm going to take a meter reading. Now, whatever the meter reading says, I'm going to shoot 1 frame. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up 4 stops. Now, if you opened up 5 stops, it would probably just go pure white in the final print. But at 4 stops, I'm expecting a little bit of detail. So I've got the first picture is of the gray card, and then I'm going to do 2 frames at 4 stops open, and then another picture of the gray card. Now the rest of the roll I can just shoot and enjoy and do whatever I want with. So when I get into the darkroom to develop this film, the key is the development time. So I'm going to use the Ilford method just to be consistent. I'm going to use 70% of whatever the recommended development time is. It appears that most people over-process their film and they get these blocked up whites. So I'm going to take the film speed that I've determined, and I'm going to process the film in the regular developer that I use, and I'm only going to do it for 70% of the development time. Now the key is when I process this 4-stop overshot, I've processed the film at 70% of recommended speed. Now when I make that print, it should be almost white with a bit of detail. Now if it's totally blocked up and it's just pure white, pure paper white, then I've got to knock a little bit more off my development time. So instead of being 70%, maybe I'll do 65% of the recommended development time. So if it's just blocked up still, I'm going to cut development time. If it's a little bit under so that there's too much detail, it's not close enough to white, then I need to develop it a little bit longer to get that white to build up. The funny thing with negatives is, let's say you had a 10-minute development time. In the first 5 minutes, all the shadow detail, all of the blacks, everything from sort of like normal and darker, that's already all processed. And as you extend the development time, that doesn't really change as much as you were hoping or much as you think. But it's the highlight area that changes. So as you extend the development time, the highlights go whiter and whiter. But if they go too white, they're basically blocked up in the print, and you can't get enough detail in that white. You just get white. So think of snow with no detail. It's just white. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that sweet spot where we've got the right ISO because we did a test on the film speed. Now we're going to nail down that development time, and it's going to be just off-white with that print. If it comes out and we make a print and it's just pure white, we got to cut the development time a bit more. If we make a print and it's a little bit too gray, we have to extend the development time. Consistency is the secret. So I've been into the darkroom and I've developed the film, and I did it for 70% of the recommended time. Now when I took that 4-stop over negative and printed it, it came out pure white. In fact, I opened up a stop with the enlarger and it was still pure white. So I'm saying, according to this method, which we're testing, that it is too much development time. So went back and shot another roll, and I shot another white square. So 4 stops over. This time I developed it for 60% of the recommended development time. So as I've said before, the shadows in that, they start to process and develop, and then they kind of slow down as you develop with more time. But the highlights, they keep building up. So what I've done on this second test is I did 60% of the recommended development time. I'm shocked that it's 60%, that I'm at 60%. So at 60%, I made my print, and you know what? It was still pretty well pure white. And so I opened up a stop in the enlarger. So we call this a 1-stop burn. And now I am finally getting a little bit of detail in the whites. So what I'm doing is I'm calling it ISO 64, And as the tests continue, I am doing 60% of the recommended development time, which is, I'm using ID-11, so I'm into like the 6-minute range. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that ISO that I've determined, and I'm going to go out and take some photographs, and hopefully they will print easily with grade 3 on the enlarger. Hopefully I can make easy prints. So that's where I'm taking this test next. Now I'm on my 3rd roll of film in this development time testing phase. So I'm still using 60% as my development time, 60% of the recommended development time. And as I've established earlier, I'm shooting with the film at ISO 64. So again, I've shot one frame, I've metered off of a neutralish background. I've opened up 4 stops. That should give me a nice white. And I've processed the film at 60%. And when I put that negative in the enlarger, same enlarger height, same paper grade, same exposure time, same f-stop, you know what? It was almost pure white. So a little whiter than I want. I'm a little bit over again with the development time. But if I opened up one stop, I got a lot of detail in the white. So I'm definitely in a controlled situation, and I'm definitely very close to where I'm trying to be, and easy to manipulate at this point. If I need to burn the whites in a bit, it's easy to do. So I've made process. So the first print, as I said, was too white, but the second print started to get detail, so we're definitely in the ballpark. So now let's go out in the field and take some photographs. So I found this church. This church is interesting because it's both sides that I photographed were in open shade, so there's no direct sun, and there's no true white in this. There is some whitish trim around the windows, but it's really a cream color. So there's no pure white, and you probably wouldn't get pure white in the shadow side anyways. So it's a little bit of a flat lighting situation, but it should be very controlled. So when I put the negative in the enlarger, my very first print, it was in the ballpark. It was in the ballpark, a little bit dark. So then all I've done is I've knocked about 10% off of the exposure time in the darkroom. So I was within about 10%, and this gives me a nice workable negative, a nice workable print. So I was very close. It's never perfect. It's very close though, so I'm okay with that. Now you take this shot and you say, well, I have to interpret this. This isn't really how I envisioned it. This is just kind of the literal light coming off the building. So with a bit of a dodge and a bit of a burn, I've now created a picture that I've interpreted. This is how I want it to look. So I've burned in the sides, I've burned in the edges, I've dodged a little bit. And so within 3 pieces of paper, I've got a nice finished picture. Do I have to spend all week printing this? No, this is just a test. I just want to make sure I'm in the ballpark. I'm able to make a good print off the negative. So 3 pieces of paper, no test strip, although I've been running tests, and bang, I've got a nice final print. So we've switched locations just to another door at the church. And again, metering with a spot meter off the brick, and it gave me a very good first print. So I was quite happy with the first print. Now that bush on the left, I dodged that a bit just because I thought it was a little bit too dark, too heavy. Took your eye away from the church door a bit. So I've dodged that a bit. And again, by the time I did my 3rd print, dodging the bush a bit, burning the edges a bit, you know, I'm happy with this print. Again, there's no pure white. There is white along the trim of the windows. And if you look at the upper left-hand corner, where that window is white, on the second print, the unburnt print, it's pretty well white. So slight detail, slight tone difference from pure white, but quite acceptable. And then it just burned in a little bit when I burned in those corners and burned in the sides. So it's a little bit darker than white, but I like it better. So again, the tests continue. I've gotten a nice usable final print within 3 pieces of paper. I've done that twice. So now the fun part starts. Now you go out and you go shooting, and you utilize what you've learned, and you try to fine tune it. And I mean, the test runs on for a while, but you're just out shooting this time. So now it's a lot of fun, and coming back, processing. So quick summary, I'm shooting Delta100 at 64. I'm processing 60% of the recommended development time. And that only works for kind of the way I develop my thermometer, my enlarger. All of this is kind of personal, especially with the development part. So, you know, you want to run your own test. It only took 3 rolls of film, a little bit of time, and I'm out having fun shooting anyways. So there you go. There you have it.